This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence.
This is probably going to be the most divisive video I've ever made. Have you done a proper SWOT analysis? Have you done any of these basic business things that you should do before you start a business? He seems like a bad guy and I'm getting a lot of red flags. A bit uncomfy at the moment. Oh. Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In today's video, we are going to be having another reading vlog, mild video essay mashup, and we're going to be reading this very book here, which is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This book is a book that I have been recommended so many times. I've had people message me, comment on videos. I actually put out an ask on Instagram to ask people what their most recommended TikTok book was, and so many people said this book. So this book, if you haven't heard of it before, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, is an incredibly popular contemporary romance novel about a young woman whose name is Lily. Lily hasn't always had it easy, but that's never stopped her from working hard for what she wants. She's come a long way from the small town in Maine where she grew up. She graduated from college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. So when she feels a spark with a gorgeous neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid, everything in Lily's life suddenly seems almost too good to be true. Ryle is assertive, stubborn, and maybe even a little arrogant. He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily, but Ryle's complete aversion to relationships is disturbing. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas Corrigan, her first love and a link to the past she's left behind. When Atlas suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. It Ends With Us is an unforgivable tale of love that comes with the ultimate price. Now, I'm going to put in a pretty big caveat on this particular video. I am not a person who tends to love contemporary romance. There's not a single romance novel I've ever rated 5 stars, but maybe this book will be the first. Maybe I'll absolutely love this book because I've seen so many people absolutely adore It Ends With Us. The reason why I wanted to pick up this book was twofold. Number one, it is a massive, enormous bestseller. That means not only A, It Ends With Us has contributed an enormous amount of money to the book publishing industry, and B, it's had a significant effect on readers and reader expectations. Now, one of the fascinating things about TikTok, for all of its flaws, it's made reading accessible to a boatload of people who wouldn't have otherwise gotten into reading. Now, BookTube and Bookstagram have been around for a very long time, but these communities have always been a little bit more insular just because of how the algorithm works on each of these respective platforms. TikTok is uniquely good at bringing in new people who wouldn't necessarily be interested in reading. Case in point, my sister-in-law messaged me last week to say, hey, have you heard of this book? It's called It Ends With Us, and she's not a person who typically reads fiction. Word of mouth has always been the most powerful marketing tool, and because of the easiness of TikTok, how easy it is to make things, how easy it is to watch loads and loads of content on there, it makes TikTok a great platform for promoting books like this, especially divisive books. A book that's sort of middle of the road, 3 stars, is not really going to compel anyone to make content about it, whether it's content about how much they love it or content about how much they hate it. And of course, on a platform like TikTok, virality is compounding, which means someone, makes a video about this book, that video gets popular, more people see that video, they go out and buy the book, those people go out and make TikToks of their own, and then it grows and grows like a big snowball. And so I'm really interested in reading this book because of that virality. What is it about this book specifically that's made it so incredibly popular online? This book has 1.7 million ratings. There's a 1 star, there's a 5 star, 5 stars, 5 stars, 1 star, 1 star. Okay, seems like people either adore this book or they hate this book. But the second reason I wanted to read this book is because 2 of my friends have read this book. One of my friends actually gave me her copy, so this was gifted to me by her. They both really don't like this book. So I'm kind of interested to see whether I have similar thoughts to them, whether I'm going to like this, whether I'm going to dislike this. Before we jump into this book and we start reading It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, I do just want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is a website builder which allows people to create dynamic, interesting, and lovely websites with ease. If you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know that I love Squarespace and use them to make my very own website. I couldn't be happier with how quick and simple it was to put together initially and how easy it is
to update and keep looking wonderful now. Squarespace has loads of benefits which make it easy to show off the things that you make. Squarespace also has powerful blogging tools so you can categorize, share, and schedule posts, and it has wonderful analytics features to help you understand the people who are visiting your website. If you're looking to make a website, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ChristyNJones to save 10% off your purchase of a website or domain. We are now going to start reading It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I'm going to give you guys my very first impressions of the book. I'm going to read at least chapter 1 right now. "26 pages for the first chapter, which I read really quickly. So the way this is written, it feels like it's going to be a very fast read. There's going to be people clicking on this video who, for them, this is the best book they've ever read and it's their favorite book of all time, and maybe it got them into reading, and maybe it's the reason why they clicked on this video and this is the first time they're seeing my channel. Hello, welcome everyone. We all have different bookish opinions. We all like different things. No one book is more valid than any other book. This is literally going to be just me sharing my opinions, which are based on my tastes, and my tastes are subjective. You know, a person has been yelled at on the internet enough times if they feel the need to caveat any like remotely negative statement before they say it. Anyway, if I borrowed this book from the library and I read that first chapter, I'd probably gently place the book back in the return slot. The voice of this story I don't think is to my taste. So we kick off with Lily. Her name is Lily Bloom. That's her name. They make a reference to being like kind of a funny thing, like who names their kid Lily Bloom, but of course her name is Lily Bloom. She meets a man on a roof and the man is kicking the absolute bejesus out of a marine grade polymer chair. If that were me and I'm on a roof and I'm by myself and it's nighttime, and all of a sudden there's this guy being super duper duper violent, like kicking a chair to pieces, I would be like, I don't want to be here, I'm gonna go. That's a bit of a red flag, but of course she is attracted to this guy. She says that he's beautiful. I've already started writing down notes. This guy is a neurosurgeon and he has a very bad temper. I am guessing he's going to be the love interest of this story, and because of that, I kind of already want to DNF this book. Like, it's just... he seems like a bad guy, and I'm getting a lot of red flags from this. The writing style it's very to the point, it's quite quick, it's engaging, but like a little bit flat so far. The characters already feel a little bit flat, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna go with this book. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it. Let's see how we go in a few chapters time. Of course the girl she just hired off the street to help with her floristry business is the sister of the guy she met on the roof. I can't remember what I've told you guys so far, but essentially we have Lily, who is our main character, and she quits her job in marketing to use her father's inheritance money to open up a flower shop in downtown Boston. And I feel like I can speak to this one specifically because up until last year, I was working in marketing. I was a digital marketing coordinator. Lily's 23 and she's a marketing executive. Like, marketing assistant is the lowest rank, and then you have marketing coordinator, and then you have marketing manager, and then you have marketing executive. It's kind of like on par with the head of department. If you're a marketing executive, you're earning quite a bit of money per year, you have quite a bit of experience under your belt, or at least that's my understanding as a person who worked in marketing in Australia. Maybe it's different in the US, I'm not sure. But Lily is a marketing executive because she's only 23, right? And she went to college. I entered university when I was 17, about to turn 18, 19, 20. So I was 20 when I finished university, because in Australia, university
university only lasts for 3 years. In America, it's 4 years. So she was probably around 21 when she finished, which means that she only worked in marketing for like 2 years maximum before she quit working in marketing to go open a floristry shop. She's never had a qualification in floristry, and I've checked before. I looked into floristry. I was like, what do you need to study in order to be a florist? And it's like a 3-year qualification, but that doesn't matter. She's gonna open a florist shop anyway, using the funds from her father, who she hates. That is so much capital. That's so much cash that you need. So Lily is extremely financially privileged to be this age and to be able to open a business in a major city and to like renovate the whole thing and to actually have no business experience, right? Marketing is one very, very, very small facet of business. There's like, she hasn't done anything to do with finance as far as I can see. She hasn't done anything to do with business management. She goes into this dilapidated building that she needs to renovate. A random girl walks in off the street and is like, hey, I saw that you had a help wanted sign. And Lily's like, I didn't have a help wanted sign. That must be left over from the last people. And Lily ends up hiring her because that's realistic. And then Lily ends up asking her advice on what to do with her business, but Lily was a marketing executive. She doesn't even have a business plan. She doesn't have a target audience. She doesn't have like any of the basic shit you would need to start a business. And I just... It's fine, it's wish fulfillment. You're not supposed to think very hard, but I'm sitting here being like, why don't you have a business plan? Why haven't you done like financial projections? Have you done a proper SWOT analysis? Have you done any of these basic business things that you should do before you start a business? Doesn't matter. Seems like everything's going really well for her regardless. And the main focus of the story is Ryle being super thirsty for her. Moving on, let's keep reading on to chapter 9. Lily is also going back and rereading old journals. Lily's sort of looking at the relationship she had when she was a teenager with this homeless boy whose name is Atlas. I'm finding that I care a lot more about like the flashbacks in the journal than I am about the current story. I don't really like Ryle. There is a significant emphasis on the fact that this guy is wearing scrubs and he's a doctor. So I'm getting the gist that if you like Grey's Anatomy, you might be into certain parts of this. Let's get reading on chapter 9. That was a very short chapter. On page 126. There's so much dialogue in here that just kind of makes me like, just like Ryle texting her, I need my fix. Like it's just a bit cringe to me. Like I'm like, ugh, please stop doing that. He buys flowers from Lily's floristry business and then sends them to her. His sister like writes a note on it that says, Lily, I'm having serious withdrawals. Ryle. Yeah, ugh. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, I'm trying not to offend anyone, but like, I hate that. And he invites himself to dinner with Lily's mother, which is an interesting choice from him. So I just finished reading chapter 10 and oh my god, actually I had a moment where I was like, so Lily was at dinner with Ryle and her mother, and the waiter at the restaurant was Atlas, right? So the guy that she knew who was homeless, who she fell in love with when she was a teenager, who lived in the abandoned house behind her house, who she was like, all of her like journals were dedicated to him. He was the waiter at the restaurant. And it seems like this is the spot that the like love triangle of the story is going to kick off from, which is the gist I got from the blurb. So it's quite sweet to see that Atlas is doing well because he seems like a nice guy who had like a challenging time in his teenagehood. Here's the thing with me. Here's the thing with my channel. I don't want to come in here and be like, oh, this popular book, well, I don't like it. There's nothing wrong with a book getting popular on a forum that's really accessible to the mass market, right? There are other TikTok books that I've found because they are TikTok books that I've absolutely loved. Evelyn Hugo is a great example of that. I loved this book, The Song of Achilles. I absolutely wept. The TikTok aspect isn't the problem here. What makes me uncomfortable is really the themes of this book and how the themes are portrayed. How do I word this? I was walking through the airport like not that long ago, the last time I was in Melbourne. I saw a 14-year-old reading this book and she was just like in the corner of the airport with her parents, this like really young girl reading this book. And now I'm like,
There are lots and lots of people picking this book up not knowing anything about it, purely based on word of mouth. And I think it's a really complex topic when we talk about, you know, the disappearing mid-list and certain books really taking all of the space and all of the budgets from readers. The virality of this book is just remarkable. I'm up to chapter 14 currently, and it's a sizable chunk of the way into the story, and Ryle, her partner, has started becoming quite violent. There was an incident where they were in the kitchen and he burnt his hand, so she giggled, and as a result of that, it was not a very good time. If she ends up staying with him at the end of this book, I'm gonna be so disappointed in this book. Like, I'm gonna be so upset and frustrated, and Lily seems really very entwined with Ryle, her love interest. Like, there's a lot of like steamy scenes in this book, which is, you know, it's a contemporary romance. Like, that's part and parcel of the genre. But because Ryle seems like a really bad guy, like a violent and kind of scary guy, it just feels like kind of ick. Like I don't really like it very much at all. Yeah, I feel a bit funny about this book, but I'm just sort of feeling a bit uncomfy at the moment. I'm gonna keep reading. I'm gonna let you guys know how I go. Currently, I am up to chapter 21. I just finished chapter 20. Today's eclectic bookmark is a little metal ruler. Hello, you can go back in there. I've read so much of this book today. I managed to just sort of force my way through quite a bit of it. I'm gonna try and very quickly summarize where we are in the plot. For anyone watching this video who's trying to keep up, who hasn't read the book, who doesn't intend to read the book, and so they don't actually mind having spoilers, let me pull up my handy dandy notes. We've learned that Ryle has a significant amount of trauma from his childhood. They are married. That was a great choice from Lily. They had a shotgun wedding. After they got married, had an incident. We're getting into this point of the story where everything's really feeling awful, and it's just gross and bad and oh. You know, when I don't like a book, if I think a book's gonna be a 1-star or a 2-star book, I DNF it and then I don't talk about it because I don't like being negative, and I don't want to talk about books I don't like on my channel because I feel like that's unkind. The one thing that's gonna be redeemable about this book is whether Lily leaves Ryle. I think this book has been really good so far in showing how a person can get really, really attached to another, and then when their behavior starts taking a bad turn, it's very hard to pull yourself away from them because you love them. One of the problems of this book for me is the fact that the characters don't feel really real to me. They don't feel nuanced and fleshed out, and there's all these really interesting wish fulfillment things that happen here. She all of a sudden has this like best friend in Ryle's sister, right? She all of a sudden falls in with all these rich people. She all of a sudden has this wonderful business, even though she doesn't seem to be having any of the trials and tribulations that would actually happen if you opened a business. There's a lot of really unrealistic wish fulfillment in this book, which I think is really interesting. And I don't love how the combination of those things was done in this story. And I'm really sorry that I'm not enjoying it, but oh. I know I keep drawing attention to the fact that so many people love this book and it's really, really popular, and I don't want to upset people by making this video and, you know, coming onto YouTube with a video specifically about this book and just being really negative when I know that so many people love it. I think it is not insignificant that people love this book and they identify with this book and emotionally they connected with this book, because this book, I've said this book so many times in this video, I'm really sorry. This book has some really significant themes in it, and I find that quite surprising based entirely on the marketing material. If you read the blurb implies that this is going to be a romance novel which is about a love triangle. This book is not about a love triangle. This book is fundamentally about DV. And just for a little bit of context here for anyone who's new to my channel, trauma is an area that I'm really interested in. I'm really passionate about the topic of abuse, and this is something that really means a lot to me. And I think it's really important that we create stories that have these themes, because this is something that happens to people. And I think that, you know, through content like art, we socialize people to have the skills to talk about their experiences, to get through their experiences. I think that books are a really fundamental medium for that. I think that books exist to help people and to help people find their truths. And I'm gonna sound really sappy for a second, but I think books are magical in the fact that they let people know that they're not alone, that their human struggles are experienced by others. And that is why I think it's so significant that a lot of people have identified with this book. I'm not going to get into the specifics of what's currently happening in the story, because my channel, I want it to be a safe space for people, and I don't want to describe things that people don't want to hear that could be upsetting, right? So essentially what's happened is Lily and Ryle are married. Things are starting to go south with their relationship. An incident happens that Ryle is responsible for that's so bad that Lily has to flee from her home. She calls Atlas and ends up going to his house, and she, after this horrible thing that Ryle did to her, finds out that she's actually pregnant. And so she has sort of hit the rock bottom of her life, and she now has to decide what she's going to do. I think what's kind of getting to me about this book, with my tastes, with, you know, how I enjoy stories, is the wish fulfillment elements that I spoke about earlier, and how they intercede with these really like harsh themes in this story. You know, we have Lily, who is this beautiful young woman who's very successful in her job and her career, who has boundless financial resources. She has this love interest who's this like sort of very typical like hyper masculine love interest, and I say typical based on the other contemporary romance books I've read. They're all like this same caricature of a guy who's like 6 foot tall and like really muscular and kind of sassy and a little bit arrogant. It's the same guy every single time for every romance book I've read. We have this sort of like wild wish fulfillment, you know, these like steamy scenes and everything that's going on, and then we have this very, very serious topic sort of sitting to the side of all of that. And the way this book oscillates between these elements, I don't know if this draws from Colleen Hoover's experiences. I'm not going to cast judgments based on that. I just don't love how the execution of these themes has happened. It's raining outside, it's very cozy. I am going to finish It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I wanted to stop myself at chapter 30 and to film my reaction of the end of this book. I'm so nervous. I'm honestly so nervous for the ending of this, because if she ends up going back to Ryle, I'm going to be so angry. Like, I'm gonna be really, really frustrated. I hope that this book was written in this way to show us how difficult it is to get out of relationships that are abusive. He was very alluring. He seemed really lovely from the beginning, even though there was a bunch of red flags in like chapter 1. I feel like if she ends up leaving Ryle, that'll salvage some of this book for me. Please, please have a decent ending. Please don't let her go back to Ryle. Fingers crossed. Okay, let's set up the camera. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure she doesn't end up with Ryle. At least she's yelling at him. There's this spot here. I don't know how good the audio is. I'm sorry if this sounds really crunchy. Ryle's being a shithead, and he's like, oh, but you've got no idea what I went through these last 2 months. And now she's saying, yes, I kept the magnet Atlas gave me when we were kids. Even if you would have walked into my bedroom and caught us in bed together, you still would not have the right to lay a hand on me, which is absolutely true. Obviously, nothing gives anyone the right to physically harm someone anyway. At least she's saying that. That's something. Surely she's not going back to him now. Oh, now they're kissing. No. There's so much victim blaming going on. No, she deserves to be angry. She deserves to say what's on her mind. I get that there's victim blaming in here because we're reading this book from the perspective of the victim, and victims tend to blame themselves, but it's just, it still feels gross to have to read it because obviously it's not her fault.
Okay, her mother is saying, don't be like me, Lily. Don't do what I did. Don't go back to the abusive person. So hopefully she won't. As I stare back at him, I think about how easy it is for humans to make judgments when we're standing on the outside of a situation. I spent years judging my mother's situation. It's easy when we're on the outside to believe that we would walk away without a second thought if a person mistreated us. It's easy to say we couldn't continue to love someone who mistreats us when we aren't the ones feeling the love of that person. I feel stressed. Please don't do it. Don't do it. They named the baby after the brother that Ryle accidentally killed when he was a child. Baby is born, it's a girl, it's a daughter. That's like the quickest labor I've ever read in a book. Ryle is holding his newborn daughter. It isn't until this moment that I finally make a decision about him, about us, about what's best for our family. Ryle is amazing in so many ways. He's compassionate, he's caring, he's smart, he's charismatic, he's driven, he's abusive, but we'll ignore that one for now. My father was some of those things too. He wasn't very compassionate towards others, but there were times we spent together where I knew he loved me. He was smart, he was charismatic, blah, 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 blah. I loved him. Blinded. 5 minutes of witnessing him at his worst couldn't make up for even 5 years of him at his best. What is she going to decide? I look at Emerson and I look at Ryle. I know that I have to do what's best for her for the relationship. I hope she builds with her father. I don't make this decision for me. I don't make it for Ryle. I make it for her. Ryle. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Ryle, when he glances at me, he's smiling, but when he assesses the look on my face, he stops. I want a divorce. Thank you, Lily. Oh, there's still time. There's still time for her to backtrack, but thank God. I mean, what a moment for her to deliver that information. Good for her. And as hard as this choice is, we break the pattern before the pattern breaks us. There we have the title. It ends with us. Cycles exist because they are excruciating to break. It takes an astronomical amount of pain and courage to disrupt a familiar pattern. I kiss her on the forehead and make her a promise. It stops here with you and me. It ends with us. Very good job. Epilogue. Okay. Very good. She ends up with Atlas. Thank the Lord, because I was really stressed there. So there's this note from the author at the end where Colleen Hoover speaks about her experiences. I'm really glad she put this little section in here to share her own experiences, and the fact that this does actually come from her mother's experience. She asked her mother if she could write this book, if her mum felt comfortable with her drawing from that as a source of inspiration. She said in this little note that this was a very, very difficult book to write, and I am so relieved that she does not end up back with Ryle. Sometimes it's not a romantic relationship, often it's platonic relationships or familial relationships where you love someone desperately and they treat you very, very badly, but it's really hard to separate that bad behavior from how much genuine love and compassion and empathy you have for them. Often people who are abusive are not very happy people. They have had abusive experiences themselves or traumatic experiences, and so this whole topic is incredibly complex. And the friend who gave me this book really, really didn't like the book, and she didn't have anything redeemable to say about it. I think I have a slightly different opinion. I am really relieved that Lily didn't end up with Ryle. I'm really relieved that despite the author showing how difficult her situation is, how much easier it would be for her to go back to him, how much she still loves him, she's still attracted to him, you know, it still feels like a comfortable pattern to slip back into being with him. She still makes the really brave and scary decision to end their relationship. Hello, I have been putting off speaking about this book for quite a long time. Essentially, I've been trying to work out how to speak about this book in a way that gets across my thoughts and feelings without upsetting anyone. I am, to be honest, probably the most conflict avoidant person you will ever meet in your life. And I don't want my channel to be a place of negativity. I don't want to waste my time talking about books I don't like when I could instead talk about books I really, really like, and I can make things that make people happy and all this stuff. I don't want to piss anyone off. If you loved this book, if you absolutely adored it, if it was your favorite thing you've ever read and it was wonderful and perfect, then I am so happy for you. Good for you. I'm glad you found a book you really loved that really spoke to you. However, for me as a reader, for my own very subjective taste, which is no more or less valid than your taste, I didn't enjoy this book. I didn't think it was great. Like, I'm very happy that at the end of the story, Lily ended up leaving Ryle. I think that that is so significant, and if that hadn't have happened, I would have been furious at the book. That was the most important thing for me, that overall this was a story about a young woman who finds herself in a situation that's really bad and she pulls herself out of it. Do I love the fact that she had to go into the arms of another man in order to do this? Not really. Do I love the writing of this story and the characters and how they were fleshed out and the tropes and the way the writing was generally? Not really. But I'm glad that overall, the biggest and most important thing to me for this book, which is the overall meaning of the story, at the very least, Lily left Ryle by the end of the book. And so I do give the book props for that. I think it's a really interesting thing how TikTok makes books like this have this sort of like viral readability, right? Like this book has 1.7 million reviews on Goodreads. Back of the napkin maths. Where's my calculator? Not really back of the napkin if it's using a calculator, but still. 1.7 million Goodreads reviews. Let's say that roughly, we'll be quite generous. Let's say that that's roughly 20% of the people who picked up and read the book, right? Because this book is being sold in Big W. It's being sold in Target, in like supermarkets. It's being sold in airports. Like random people are just wandering into bookstores and picking up this book. So lots of people who wouldn't use Goodreads. Probably it's more like 10% of readers actually rated on Goodreads, but we'll be generous. Let's say it's 20%. So 1.7 million times 5, that is 8.5 million copies sold. That's so many. I went in expecting a certain amount of wish fulfillment. I went in expecting there to be like quite a number of tropes, because the other contemporary romance books I've read have had those similar elements, similar writing style to this that's really easy to read. There's nothing wrong with this book being written that way as long as people are enjoying it, right? Doesn't matter that I didn't love the book. There are plenty of people who did love the book. It makes it a valid piece of art for those people, right? And also, just quickly, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is because book snobbishness is a huge pet hate for me. Snobbishness is grounded in centuries of classism, sexism, Eurocentrism, and a whole bunch of other isms as well. And the romance genre is often hit particularly hard with this, mostly because of the demographics of the readership, which is predominantly women. If we go down this philosophical rabbit hole on what makes good literature, we can very quickly see how our society privileges very specific types of people, what books are let into the literary canon and what books are excluded from it. And now that books and reading are more accessible, it means that books can be for absolutely everyone. However, there's still this lingering culture that we have of privileging certain kinds of books because they're written by certain kinds of people for certain kinds of people. Now, my only real gripe here is that I don't personally love the printing of as seen on TikTok labels permanently onto book covers, but aside from that, what does it matter where people are getting their book recommendations from? You're not any more intelligent or interesting or valid as a person because you're reading books that have a higher perceived difficulty. It's all art, it's all entertainment, and it's all valid. Reading accessibility and book accessibility are a wonderful thing. Widespread literacy is a wonderful thing. And just because I didn't particularly enjoy this book doesn't mean that I'm now gonna go off and turn my nose up at other TikTok books or say, oh, because that book is popular, I'm not gonna enjoy it, it's probably not good. Like, honestly, none of it matters. People should just be able to have fun and enjoy whatever forms of art and entertainment they like, because we're all just silly blobs of flesh on a floating rock anyway. It doesn't matter. So that is my whole little book snobbishness and literature philosophy. I feel awful for romance readers because they often get mocked and belittled literally just because of the type of books that they enjoy reading. Also, being a person who loves fantasy gets looked down on by certain groups of people. In my very first creative writing class, a creative writing lecturer walked in and said, we won't be writing fantasy in this class because fantasy writers are all lazy because they don't want to do research. Like, this snobbishness has always been a huge pet peeve. It's a really important thing that we actively work to reduce those biases, because people should just be allowed to love whatever books that they love. In the end, as it turns out, we'll rate this book 2 stars. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't my cup of tea. Of the few romance books I've read, the like main redeeming quality to them is the fact that generally it's a happy story and it's quite wholesome, right? This did not have that at all because of the significant themes of domestic abuse. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you liked this reading vlog. Thank you to everyone over on Patreon for supporting my channel, because I wouldn't be able to make these potentially divisive videos without the people over there supporting the work that I do. Take care everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.